Okay, welcome everybody.
Yeah, it's nice to see your faces. In some cases, just your names, but that's okay. We know you're there. If you want to introduce yourself in chat, I know we know a lot of you know each other, but if you feel that you would like to introduce yourself and say if any group that you're affiliated with, you can put that in the chat if you like.
And maybe where you're from, because that actually helps us to see if we're getting any geographic diversity, which we usually are not. It's usually Albuquerque and Santa Fe.
Right. Not where you were born, but
yeah, right.
Where you are right now. We'd probably get lots of diversity if we asked for that. So I'm just going to ask quickly, and you can just wave your hand. Is there anybody who's new that hasn't been on one of our legislative huddles? Oh, there are some new people. Okay, great.
Just a couple, Jeff Fulbrook,
Arthur and
Rhonda.
Rhonda. And there may be some that we're just not seeing.
Jean Neblin.
Okay, great. I guess we know some of you, but maybe you weren't participating in the huddles. So,
right.
Yeah. All right. So, we'll just take a really quick second to say the purpose of the huddles is to discuss, well, in advance, like tonight, what legislation we're going to be supporting, what legislation we think is coming down the pike in the 2023 session. And we'll do that 2 or 3, maybe 4 times before the session starts on January 17th. And then we typically do a Zoom huddle every week throughout the session so we can swap information and talk about what we've learned, not just Paul and I, but all of us, because a lot of times we have people on these calls who are directly connected to some of the legislation that's working its way through, and they have good information to share with us about how we can help them get that legislation passed.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just, we just whine and complain about how busy it is and how long those hearings last, late into the night. So anyway, it's always good to check in with each other throughout the session. So you all have the ability to unmute and to talk. But let's just say, if you can, just keep yourself muted unless you're going to speak, just so we don't get a lot of background noise. And if you would like to ask a question, please use the raise hand function. If for some reason that's not working for you, you can try waving, but raise hand really works better because then we can take people in the order that they've raised their hands.
Plus, there's too many of you on the screen.
Yeah,
so
we won't. We've got
of...
at least 2 screens. We might wind up with 3 screens, so we won't necessarily be able to see you if you are just raising your real hand. And feel free to chat with each other on the side, make comments. If you don't have an actual question or something that you really want to speak up and say to the whole group, just go ahead and put it in the chat. Or if somebody asks a question and we don't know the answer and you do, please speak up or put that in the chat. Okay.
Okay, so I just want to briefly suggest that this is one of the most important sessions coming up that we've had for a couple of reasons. One, we just had a 30-day session and we just had an election. So now we've got a 60-day session with legislators who aren't facing the voters in the next 2 years or in the next year. And so we're not up for re-election. And so and the election, everybody was terrified of a red wave or whatever. And in New Mexico, we obviously didn't do that. And so we actually improved the House. We have the same 45 to 25 margin, but we lost 2 conservative Dems and got 2 moderate to liberal Dems. And so, that's a good thing. Yep. And so with that and a Democratic governor who, is not the best by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not Mark Ronchetti. So we've got a chance to get some things done. And as importantly as all of that, or maybe not as importantly, but very importantly, allies of ours have been working very, very hard to prepare legislation for this session. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the bills we're supporting, but the important thing for you to know is the reason we're supporting the bills that we're supporting so far is because we're actively working with those, the organization or organizations that are advancing that bill. And so we're deeply involved. We know what's going on with it, and we have good communication with them, and have been working with them to get, to do well in the interim hearings and things like that. So it's sort of what we've always wanted to do, is to get a little bit ahead of the game. And so once we've gotten ahead, we've got to finish. And so we're really hoping that we'll have a good contingency of people like you who will be communicating with your legislators, maybe writing some letters to the editor and so forth, and just really trying to win the communications battle.
Yeah. So just a lot of you know this, but the session begins on Tuesday, January 17th. So we're about 6 weeks out from that, roughly. And it ends on Saturday, March 18th. So it's a little over 8 weeks long. The period for pre-filing bills, you can start filing before the session actually begins. That starts on January 3rd. So we'll start to see bills hitting the NM Legis website. And the last day to file is February 16th. So, about a month before the session actually ends. So we're going to go over the bills that we are almost certain are going to be introduced, things that we've been directly involved with. And then we're going to just mention some other issue areas that we would be supporting if bills are introduced, but we don't know for a fact. So if you know something about those areas, or you've heard that a bill is going to be introduced, please speak up and let us know.
And as we're doing this, keep in mind that we really need to keep the bills that we're tracking and sending out alerts on and trying to have hearing observers to 10 or 12 and no more. And as you'll hear, we've got 8 or 9 right now.
Right. And we say this every year. Some of you have been with us. I see Carl's nodding his head. Meg knows this. A lot of you, we say this every year, but probably 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, we had 40 something bills. It was
60.
I don't think
we
so.
had 62 years ago. We had 40.
It was chaos, I'll just say. And so then last year we kept it to about 25, but that was only 30 days. I mean, 60 days is a lot, takes a bigger toll. I mean, we're always complaining, oh, why do they do 30-day sessions? You can't get anything done. Okay, well, now we got a 60-day session, but that means twice as many bills get introduced too, as part of the issue. So we are gonna do our best to keep that list at a lower number. And then I'll talk about some of the other support that we might be able to provide you if there are bills that you want to follow and support that you can do on your own.
I think what we'll likely do is we'll have the 10 or 12 bills that we're tracking and that are our priority bills. And then we'll identify, like, let's for instance say a tax credit for solar comes out, and that's not transformational, but it's something we support. And so we would have a list of bills that we support and try and figure out a way to at least have some modest amount of information available to you if you wanted to weigh in on those bills.
Okay, and yeah, I see your note, Marty. Maybe once we get through our list, you can tell us about that bill. And if any of you know about other bills, please let us know. We'll get through our list and then you can raise your hand. We'll let you speak, but please try to keep it to a minute or less. I mean, especially if there are several people who want to talk about bills. Okay, so the bills that we know we're going to be supporting, and these are on our website, by the way, at retakeourdemocracy.org. If you go to NM legislation, that's up in the top menu bar, click on that, and it's the very first thing you'll see is are the 23 session and the bills we're going to be supporting that we know of so far. So go ahead.
Local public power, and we're
Which-
doing a Zoominar on that on December 7th,
A week from tonight,
a week from tonight.
from 6 to 7:30, Zoominar with some really smart folks who know all about public power and local choice energy. And you can find the information for that on the website again, and that's under actions and events. Just scroll down a little bit and you'll find the registration link for that.
State Public Bank,
Public Bank again.
modernizing the legislature, and that's the pay increase in, or not increase, because there's none. Creation of pay for legislators, creation of pay
For
for
staff
paid staff dedicated to the legislator.
and
and-
possibly a restructuring of the way business is done, right? Or the session, lengths of sessions. and
Lengths of
things.
session
things
is on
like
the
that.
table, and so that could come in the form of 2 or 3 bills.
Yeah, and we did a Zoominar on that last summer, and so some of you were probably on there, and there's a large group of Democratic House women in the House who are working on that, have been working on that for well over a year now. The Green Amendment.
Green Amendment, yes.
Yep, and you all know about that. That's on the list again.
But they've done a lot of work in the last year and have gathered quite a bit more legislative support. They've introduced a little bit of language about the Green Amendment and BIPOC communities, protecting BIPOC communities. And they feel like they're ready to go. And so it's going to be interesting.
Yep, the Health Security Act, and that's mostly just going to be maintaining or getting more funding. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm supposed to talk to Mary Feldblum yesterday and I blew her off. My bad. I didn't blow her off. I just forgot.
Okay, so we'll tell you more about that as we know what the plan is from the health security folks. And this is a new one, although someone, Roy Caballero did introduce something around
Memorial about it.
last year, and that's guaranteed basic income pilot projects.
And that one I've been working on, but it's been like herding cats. The couple people that I have to, get together and have in the same phone Zoom, and it just isn't happening. So
It's a scheduling problem.
it's a
Yeah.
scheduling problem
Yeah.
between among 3 very busy people. So that I'm worried that might not come off.
Excuse me.
And then we'll hear more. I think it's tomorrow. Maybe not. But there's a Zoom for, and Rich, you'll know this, Voices for Children.
About tax policy.
Is that tomorrow? Yeah.
He's nodding. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we'll get,
Yeah, tomorrow at 10.
right, and we'll get some guidance then as to, because those are the people we just, tell us what to do and we'll do it. And so we'll have more on that. And then, of course, we'll be opposing anything hydrogen related. We don't know yet what's being planned or if anything's
Right.
being planned.
And of course, they are going ahead trying to convert I think it's Escalante, right, out
Yeah.
near Gallup into a hydrogen plant, but they can do that. The state can do that. What the legislation would do is provide a lot more money for that. And so we want to try to stop that because we can't stop them from building a hydrogen plant, or maybe we can, I don't know. But we don't want them to make legislation, so they put a lot of millions of dollars in the budget for hydrogen. So those are the things that we have listed on our website that we are pretty sure are coming. But other issue areas that we care a lot about, and we would definitely support bills, are things like, and actually this one I know is coming, paid family and medical leave, because they introduced a resolution for a task force last year, and the task force just submitted a report. Maybe you saw, I think the Santa Fe, New Mexican, and maybe some other papers reported about this just yesterday or the day before.
It's a really good bill, the way it's structured.
Yeah, it's Linda Serrato, I think.
Yes.
She's a House member from Santa Fe. So she's going to be introducing that bill. So we will definitely support that. Just haven't had time to get it on the list yet. Paul just spoke yesterday today with Miranda Viscoli, who's the head of New Mexicans to Prevent Gun Violence. There are going to be some gun violence prevention bills. We don't know exactly what those are yet.
Well,
Do we,
we know that according to her, there will be one to ban assault weapons, but she thinks it has no hope. And she doesn't, after talking with her, it was like a lot of smaller gun violence prevention type things that maybe could pass, and then some bigger things that she just said not going anywhere. And so I don't know.
It sounds so weird to say, oh, just a small gun violence prevention
Well,
thing.
the one thing she's most excited about and hopes to get is the creation of a gun violence prevention office in the state government, so that there's a place to park money for multi-year staff to do this work, to do that kind and trainings and things like that. The way it is now, they get a single allocation for a year. And you can't hire a staff with a single allocation and say, well, we hope you'll still have a job come next June. That's their top priority. That probably won't be one of our transformational bills, but we'll support it.
Then housing, we're going to talk to, Paul's going to talk to Andrea Romero sometime soon to find out if she's going to reintroduce her housing bill. Water, things that are related to watter.
Yeah, Roxanne and Andrea and Angelica are both gonna introduce what they call housing 3.0.
Okay,
Okay.
great.
I've been following it with the housing group.
Okay, thank you.
Andrea is part of it as well.
Yeah, she is.
Andrea, for
Yeah.
sure.
Angelica, Rubio, and I think they have one more this year. I can't remember who it
Wait,
is.
Susan
Yeah.
Herrera was part of it last year, I think. But anyway, did somebody else say something? No? Okay.
But Nancy Rodriguez in the Senate would be part of it too.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Water, we said, right?
There was a Zoominar last night and I watched part of it with Norm Gaum. And they laid out all the legislation that I think, Carl, you were on there, weren't you? And Norm promised me to get me a good summary of what their water related legislation will be, but we will certainly support
Yeah.
that.
So we're going to be, as we learn more about these things, we'll be adding them to the list that's up on the website under NM legislation.
Can I
And
just say
then-
though, last night, so I was there also, and Norm,
Yeah.
Norm really started to talk about the imperative of actually starting to work on it this coming legislative session, because it's going to take 4 to 5 years to get this done, and we are becoming arid really quickly. So the sooner we get to
You
this, the
say
better,
it'll
because
take 45
aquifers-
years or 4 to 5 years?
4 to 5 years, 4 to
Oh, we thought you
5
said
years.
45.
Yeah, no, and also in case you don't know, the aquifers are being destroyed in the southeast New Mexico. So the sooner we do something, the better.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Jay. And then, of course, any kind of solar tax credits, whether it's rooftop solar, EV solar, or energy storage. That was a bill that didn't make it through last year. So there's several things that didn't make it through last year that if they are reintroduced, and it sounds like a lot of them are going to be, we will support those. The level of support will just depend on how long the list is getting. So, okay, does anybody know, let's let Marty, you wanted to, Marty said something about, go ahead, Marty, you mentioned reproductive rights, but also a police training bill.
Right. Well, on reproductive rights, that's a 2-sentence. I believe they have decided to go ahead with an attempt for a constitutional amendment to install reproductive rights and choice and
We would
control over
definitely
your own
support
body
that.
in the Constitution. Yeah, what I wanted to bring up also is that people in Indivisible SOS have been working with law enforcement and with all the training units for both dispatch and sworn officers, and with the Department of Public Safety to develop a bill to totally professionalize, improve training, put real resources into it, use the curriculum is 40 years old, use a nationally recognized, excellent curriculum. I think the Department of Public Safety, the woman who writes their bills has been working with somebody from SOS to write the bill. It was presented to the interim, Gail Chasey's interim committee a week ago Tuesday. I'm assuming that went well. Obviously, Cervantes is the person who needs to be convinced of it. So I will be working on that.
Mhm.
And
I'm
Cindy, do
working
you
on
know
that
how
too.
that went? Do you know how that went? Because I didn't hear the summary.
No, there was no summary yet. There is no
Oh,
summary
okay,
yet.
okay. Anyway, it is definitely gonna be early introduced.
Okay,
Okay.
well, let me just say this to you, Marty and Cindy, since you seem to be involved with that too. Can you just pass information on
Of
about that?
course, no,
bill?
I'll say, as soon as I know what's happening, I will send you summaries.
Right, and likewise for anyone else who's directly, has some knowledge or some involvement in legislation that's under one of the categories we talked about. Don't assume that we have a line to this information. Please send us a note and let us know what you find out. That would be really helpful. Okay, anybody else want to mention a bill or a potential bill that they've heard about? Yeah, go ahead, Rich and Karen.
That's on mute.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, she-
I'm working with a group called Southwest Alliance for a Safe Future. We call ourselves SAFE for short. And Steinborn is going to reintroduce, he had a bill last session that would stop Holtec International from bringing possibly the entire totality of spent nuclear high-level radioactive fuel rods from all the nuclear power plants in the country. Originally, it was going to be 60% for New Mexico and 40% for Texas, but Texas passed a bill making it prohibiting issuance of state permits that the other company, WSC, ISP, whatever it is, would need in order to build and operate.
So if they can do it, we can do it.
facility. Yeah, exactly. But I would love it if this group could support that bill when it
Yeah,
is.
No
thank you.
question
Thank
we
you for
will.
bringing that up. That's something that Paul and I have talked about, but I neglected to add it to the list. We didn't know if there were if the
Steinborn
bill-
has actually crafted a bill, and I don't know
Okay.
when it's going to drop, but we're totally behind it, and we'd love to have you with us.
Absolutely, we will.
Okay,
And I will talk to
Karen-
Jeff tomorrow.
Karen, are you working with 285? Because
Well, we overlap. 285, Cynthia Wheeler is
Mhm.
also on the board of SAFE. And,
Okay.
it's kind of the usual suspects where, we work together, but
Okay,
285
didn't
is
realize-
more focused on the WIP expansion.
yes,
Which
right.
and
is
the
also
transportation of the
Right.
materials, yeah.
I
down
don't
Highway
think,
285.
okay, because she didn't mention that there's something being written to address this officially, because she's been knocking her head against trying to get a meeting with the governor. So I'm assuming that you're in touch with her and
She's on your board, yeah. Right?
okay,
Yeah.
okay, great. Just want to make sure.
Okay,
So you say Cynthia's been trying to get with the governor about the WIP expansion?
Yes, and has
Yes.
been completely unsuccessful.
Oh dear, that's not good. Well, the governor is sort of schizophrenic about nuclear waste storage. Seems like she's sort of pro WIP and anti Holtec. Because WIP's already here, it's a harder thing to oppose. It's,
Yeah, that's the
people have
issue.
jobs
and they probably contributed to her campaign.
Oh, could be.
Oh,
Yeah,
Sam,
so
you're so
I haven't
cynical.
talked with Cynthia lately, but I'll
Please give her a call. Mhm.
I will.
Okay,
Okay,
appreciate that.
Thank you for that,
Thanks.
Karen.
And
Um,
you are,
oh,
I'm sorry, I
sorry.
can't say your name.
Cindy Pabst.
Cindy
Cindy
Pabst.
Pabst.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And
Karen
Karen
Sweeney
Sweeney.
has a comment.
Hi. I do want to mention there's a group, the Plastic Action Team out of Albuquerque and a few people in Santa Fe working on a reduction of single-use plastics bill. We presented to the interim committee, Matthew McQueen's Water and Natural Resources in September, and Representative Roybal Caballero came whipping up to us saying, I was looking for this, I'll sponsor it. Since then, we've been unable to be in touch with her. So we have a bill draft in search of a sponsor. We're working on that now, but I hope it's going to happen because It's important.
Yes, okay, yeah,
Some-
someone sent us a note about that.
Karen,
Just-
send me an
just
email
this week.
tonight about this and I'll respond. I
Can
have
you-
some thoughts about it, but I can't share them.
We'll certainly let you know when it moves.
Okay, all right, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a bill that we haven't mentioned that they want to say something about?
Do we want to do anything about the state bank? Is
Yeah,
that
Yeah,
next
that's
year?
That's
near the
definitely
top
on
of
our list. Yeah. Sorry, Paul did mention that, but maybe you missed it. Yeah, we're definitely working, you know, and have been for some years with.
It's on the list, sorry.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about the session that's coming up. Gosh, it's going to be here before we know it. And some of you have been hearing observers for retake in past years, which, I mean, we really depend on you. So we are going to need people to do that again. And what that is, for those of you who don't know, is there's a sign up sheet. I just updated it and I put a link on the NM legislation page this afternoon. And you just click through if you're interested. What I didn't have time to do is to put the description of what it is, so I'll do that tomorrow, because if you've never done it before, you probably want to hear what it is you're volunteering for. So basically, you're volunteering to either participate in a hearing one of three ways: either in person at the Roundhouse. So that would mean you've got to live somewhere in the vicinity of Santa Fe, because we don't want you to have to drive all that way and then have the hearing be postponed. Or via Zoom. And we think all the hearings are going to be available via Zoom, especially for some of them in the Senate in particular. It's only if you were going to make public comment, I think. They will allow you into the Zoom, and then you sign up for public comment. And we don't know whether things are going to be done exactly the same way this year. We just have to wait and see. I'll check in with some of the support staff at the Roundhouse in December and see if anything's going to change. And then the third way to participate in a hearing, to listen, is to use the webcast. Watch the webcast, which is on nmlegis.gov. And they broadcast every single hearing and every single House and Senate session. So if you can't go there and you're not going to comment, you can't participate in the Zoom, you can always watch the webcast. And what a lot of people have done in the past is maybe they couldn't do it right then, or the hearing was postponed by a couple hours, and so they were no longer available. They just went the next day or that evening and watched the webcast and took notes from that. So there's usually no more than one, sometimes there's two of our bills in a single hearing. So you would just be listening for the discussions around the bills that we're supporting, those one or two, and making note of what the main objections are to the bill in the case, particularly in a case when we're supporting a bill. Or if it's in the case of like hydrogen, which we're going to oppose, you would make notes about the arguments for, because then we have a chance, especially early on, that's helpful, because then we have a chance to go and do a little more research and counter some of these points that people are making. Many of them, especially coming from industry, obviously, are misinformation. And so we have a chance to counter them, because they're going to keep bringing, these lobbyists, they bring up the same points every time it goes through a hearing. So as it moves through, it's going to be the same people bringing up the same issues or arguments every hearing. And so if we have information to counter those arguments as we go along, that's very effective.
The other thing we need record of is the vote on any tabled bill, because they don't record the tabling.
Right, like in Patty Lundstrom's committee, House Appropriations and Finance, is that what that's called? Yeah.
Yeah.
She'll just say table, and everybody will just go, yeah, and they just keep moving. She'll go like one after the other. But we'd like to try to get a tally of who voted in favor or against the tabling. And those like Paul said, those votes are not available on the legislative website.
That may be another thing that gets dealt with in the professionalization of the legislature, that it needs to be more transparent, that you
Mhm.
can't do these things just to make things go away and nobody knows why or how.
Right, right. But then as an observer, we also ask you to take the final vote, the yays and the nays. We can always, back that up later by, they will post the vote on the website, but sometimes that takes a couple of days. And when it's something really critical that's moving quickly to another committee, I mean, it's good if we know who voted for and against and who we might need to talk to.
Right.
So that's basically it. There's a, I think last year we didn't use the Google form for that. We just, I sent people a Word document with just, this is what you put down your name and your email, what hearing are you in, what bill are you listening to? And then there would be like a little grid where you can put in the names of the committee members and just put X under like yes and no. And then you just type in what comments were made that you thought were significant and then what the final outcome was. Did it pass or not? So it's pretty simple.
It's easy to use.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you, Cindy. So if you're interested in that, please volunteer. Did somebody else say something?
I just
Wait,
wanted to add.
Somebody is trying to say something, but sorry. Was that Maria? Were you trying to say something? We couldn't hear you.
No.
Maybe
I'll
she's
say
good.
something.
Okay, go ahead.
Just that I think it's going to be more important than in the last year that we have hearing observers, because last year I covered a ton of hearings because I could, where they delay things, I could be watching one hearing on my computer and have another one just waiting to go. So I could be in 2 or 3 places at once. But if I'm at the Roundhouse, and I'm planning to be at the Roundhouse every day, hopefully, assuming there's not another spike in COVID and crap. But and if I'm there, it's not that easy to get from one hearing to the next. So I'll be parked and in one hearing room for a period of time and then on to something else. So it'll be helpful to have more coverage than we've had in the past.
So if you'd like to volunteer, we give you as much support as we can. We unfortunately, these things don't get scheduled to the night before, but the way we work it is if you go fill out the form at the website, it's under NM legislation, right at the top there once you click through. We're asking you to commit to at least one shift, but hopefully 2 shifts a week. Like I can do Monday and Wednesday mornings. And those shifts are basically 8 to 1 and 1 to 6. They don't always go that long. They don't always start at 8. Often they start at 9 or 9:30. And the problem with the afternoons is they don't always start at 1. They might not start till 2 or 3 or 4. So that's always challenging. But so we ask you to just check which days and whether you want to AM or PM, and how flexible you are, those kinds of things. We don't find out about what bills are going to be heard till usually just the night before. Sometimes we might find out a little bit earlier, but so I will send you a note with all the information about where to go, what time, and all the information that everybody's getting, the talking points and things like that, so you can understand what the bill is about and what the issue is about.
We'd
So
like to be able to accommodate people who want to say, I'm just interested in energy bills or environment bills or education bills, but that just becomes a nightmare organizationally.
logistically to schedule that, because it works a lot better if you just commit to a morning or 2 or an afternoon or 2, and then we know we're covered, and often there isn't anything. So you might be scheduled for Wednesday morning, but there's no bill. So, and you just have to keep it open, and then you find out the night before. So if you've done that before and you like doing it, we highly encourage you to volunteer again. I see a lot of people on here who have before. Thank you so much. And if you haven't, please give it a try. And I will put up more information about that. Also, if you want to write to me with questions or have a little email discussion about it, that's fine too. You can reach either Paul or I at retakeresponse@gmail.com. That's our general email address, retakeresponse@gmail.com. And then we'll also send out in the blog and probably in the alert upcoming sometime soon, some more details and encouraging people to volunteer for that.
I
Okay.
just got an email also from somebody who wanted to be on this Zoom and he was denied access because he didn't have a commercial account. So I don't know. We'll try and figure this out. That was Michael
Yes.
Sperberg McQueen.
Oh, that's too bad. Yeah, something got a little messed up, so we're going to try to fix it for next time. If you know somebody who couldn't get on, this is being recorded and it'll be up on the website under what actions?
Actions and events. There's a link at the top. for
Will the
Zoom.
recording be there?
Yeah, well, no, not the recording. It says a link for Zoominar recordings because otherwise they take up a lot of space.
Okay, we'll send a note about that too in the next blog and in the next alert, so people are clear about where to find the recordings if they weren't able to get on, and we'll try to solve this technical issue so that this doesn't happen again. Okay, let me see, we have about 20 minutes. Please raise your hand if you have a question. The other thing that we're not as clear on this year is whether we need researchers. And that's, if you have an issue of interest, it's maybe something you even have a little expertise in or knowledge of, then it's usually good to volunteer around that issue. But until we see the bills that are coming up, I mean, we have a lot of talking points from previous years, from bills that are being reintroduced year after year after year, but that are not making it. So we will generally go and repurpose those. So we have a lot of information and resources for many of the bills that we're going to be supporting. But some of these new things, like the one that Marty mentioned, we don't have anything for that. So if you're a person who has knowledge of a particular bill and a lot of interest in that and would be willing to write up talking points for people that they can then use in support of the bill, that would be great. Let us know. Again, you can write to retakeresponse@gmail.com. And, a lot of you have done research for us in the past, and it's just extremely helpful because, it can be a lot of work, especially with the brand new bill that doesn't have a whole lot of resources out there yet to just go out and gather and compile. Okay, we got a couple of hands up. Cindy?
Hi, are you going to be asking for help with going through the bills that come up on a regular basis using the Google Doc?
We were going to talk to you and Michael about that since the two of
that's
you
fine.
did that last year. We're not sure how much we need it this year because we really are going to keep our promise to limit the numbers, but we're not sure yet. So let's have a separate conversation about that. Maybe you and I, since Michael couldn't get on tonight, maybe the four of us can talk sometime soon. But thank you for asking. And Bob
Libby.
Hi.
Hi.
So I wanted to ask, well, two things. I had trouble getting on tonight also. So the launch button didn't work. They wanted some kind of password, but then you had a big link and I tried that and it worked right away. But I was also hoping to hear a report about the Supreme Court on the PRC
Sure.
Monday.
Oh,
I'd
okay.
really
Yeah, we
like to
can
hear about
probably
that.
do something brief on that because it looks like we have time. Does anybody have questions before we do, Bob, about hearing observers or researchers that they want to ask right now? Or you can send us an email and ask us too, or instead.
Seeing no questions, I was at the hearing.
Okay,
Uh,
wait, people may not know what we're talking about,
okay,
so let's
Okay,
just,
I'm gonna back into it.
and this is about,
It-
previous legislation.
Yeah, it was the constitutional amendment passed 2 years ago to allow the governor to appoint PRC commissioners. And
Instead of people
instead
voting.
of people voting for them. And I wrote a blog. So if you just put in PRC in the search engine, you'll find a good explanation for exactly what was wrong with the amendment and why it was unconstitutional. And if you had sat in the hearing with us, you would have been stunned when they denied the petition, because the whole, you know how when the Supreme Court, the US Supreme Court has a hearing, you'll read in the news that, it looked, by basis of their questions, it looks very much like they're going to deny this petition or approve it. Well, that was definitely the case there. They were practically laughing at the arguments opposing the petition, and really questioning them, like, are you seriously thinking that the Supreme Court is going to do this or that? And so that happened throughout.
Right, and just for clarification, because I don't know how much all of you know about this, there were 2 or 3 indigenous groups in the state who brought the original petition to the Supreme Court, and one of the primary arguments was that there wasn't enough information given on the ballot when people voted for this. People were not aware that it took it from 5 commissioners to 3, that there would no longer be geographic representation and various other things, because the language is very short, and people, you know how people are, especially with amendments. Oh, yes, yes, yes. A lot of people just click the yes box, and that's what happened. So sorry, go ahead.
Well, there were other things too, like the bill. The Attorney General weighed in with an opinion that, according to the language in the legislation, the authorizing legislation that was approved by the voters, the commissioners serve at the pleasure of the governor, which means she could remove a commissioner at any time for any reason, for no reason. No hearing, no word, no reason, nothing. You're just gone. And that certainly wasn't in the amendment. And the Supreme Court Chief Justice said, we're going to go into our chambers and talk for a few minutes, and if we can come up with a decision, we'll come back out and give it. And when they came out in 20 minutes, 30 minutes, we thought for sure we had won, and we're totally stunned. They gave no reason whatsoever, and they said that they would have a written opinion outlining their positions later, but that could be months from now.
Yeah, so we have no idea.
So we have no idea why it
Very
was
unfortunate. But a lot, related to that, some of you may have already seen this. We put out an alert this morning that this Friday at the Roundhouse, the nominating committee that's nominating potential candidates for the governor to appoint is meeting Friday, 9 a.m. at the Roundhouse.
It was in our
To
alert.
make the final recommendations. There are, we believe, 15 that were interviewed. I think they have to put forth at least 5 or 6, and then she chooses 3. One of the points that's been brought up is there were requirements in the legislation for minimum qualifications for candidates, and people, us and others have been going through all the application materials are available online. There's a link to that in this morning's alert. Many of those people do not meet those requirements. So if you didn't catch the alert, sorry, we're just checking our battery power. Okay, we're okay. You can find all of the alerts on the website. I keep talking about the website, but there's a lot of information there. So I just want you to know that if you didn't catch something, you can go to the website and usually find it. If you go to actions and events, there's 3 or 4 links right at the top of that page, and one of them is links to all of our alerts. And so it was this morning's alert. If you want to go and read about that, if you can show up and offer comment. We included some speaking points in the body of the alert this morning.
And we recommended 3 candidates. There's 3 really good candidates, so you can just guess that they will not be appointed. But
Right, and so one of them is a current PRC commissioner, that's Cynthia Hall,
Right.
correct? And then Glick,
Glick. Yeah, she's got
Can't
a
remember
Steve
first
for her first name too.
um,
Carolyn
she's-
Glick. I
yeah,
think,
she's been a hearing examiner there for
15 years,
a long time. And then,
and she's a good one.
yeah, this is all in the alert. And then there's another guy who's a native New Mexican who's worked for the Federal Energy Regulation Commission in DC for the last 15 years. So he's very qualified. Yeah, and Gabriel, I'm
Gabriel.
sorry, we weren't planning on talking about this, so we don't have the names in front of us, but anyway, it's there for you to read about if you're interested on the website. So is that good, Bob? Any other questions?
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Who,
Oh, okay. Sure.
who approves of these three people? Is it the governor?
Yes.
Should
The
we-
governor picks the three, and then
Three out of the
the Senate
six.
Rules Committee has to approve it.
But
I'm
that's,
assuming
three.
it's the rules. They said Senate has to approve it. I don't think it goes. for a
that's
floor
probably
vote.
just rubber stamping it.
I mean, the three that you had highlighted seemed excellent. And should we be emailing the governor and saying these are the three obviously most qualified people?
I think it wouldn't hurt. I mean, at least she'd know when she goes and steps in the pile of poop that there's a lot of people who are noticing it.
Well, but we don't know that these three are going to be in the 5 or 6 that they're putting forward. So right
Yeah,
now, it's probably more essential to either write to the committee members or show up at the hearing or participate in the Zoom on Friday morning.
So it's the committee, this committee is the one that picks the 5 or something.
Right.
Is that
The
right?
nominating committee, yeah, that Brian Egoff nominated himself too. So
And he is now the chair.
he's one of the people on it. There are, I think,
Well,
like,
I really appreciate all that you guys do and for keeping us informed. It's really
oh,
great.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rich,
Yeah, does anybody know how that nominating commission got put in place? I mean, who appointed them?
that was in the legislation, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Amen.
What, the specific people on a?
Yeah, well, no,
nominating
I mean,
Oh.
specific people that made the appointments, like Speaker of the House. And so he appointed
Oh.
himself.
Appointed himself.
The governor appointed some people.
Yeah, there had to be a certain number of legislators and the governor and then a few other, somebody at the PRC maybe got,
I
or
don't think so. but-
maybe, anyway, they said in the legislation, it said these people will nominate members of this nominating
Yeah, right.
committee. And yeah, there was people weren't happy about that process either, but what are you gonna do?
Welcome to the next.
And I dropped the link in the chat. If you want to know more about it, that's the website to look at. It tells you all about the process and everything they've been doing. And it is well past time. They're about to pick the 5 for the gov to pick from. So
Right, I know. We did put some information out about this a few months ago, but it is kind of late in the game. Oh yeah, it's definitely too late to nominate, Alyssa. That's happened some months ago. Yeah, and yeah, it's at the PRC website. So Jay put the link in there. prc.org/nominating committee. And all the application materials are there. You can read them if you get off on that kind of thing.
So one of the
getting
things that
tired.
we mentioned was that we were going to try and scale back on how many bills we were doing alerts on and things like that. But the other thing that Roxanne's going to be working on is a tutorial so that people who have bills that they would like to track that we aren't, that they can more easily do so on their own. And it sort of goes from the thing of either throwing people a fish or teaching them how to fish. And so we're going to try and provide an easy way to keep track of 5 or 6 bills of your own preference.
Right, if they're not bills that we're following and we aren't notifying you, and it's a fairly simple way to do it, but you got to use the nmlegis.gov website. And maybe some of you have done it before using My Roundhouse, but that's a piece of it. But then also, where to find the updated hearing schedules and, there's just some things that aren't that easy to navigate if you haven't done it before. So I was going to try to put something together, maybe do a Zoom and record it and use share screen and just try to make it as simple as possible so that we don't have to feel bad about not tracking all those bills ourselves, so that we give you the ability to track the ones that just didn't make it onto the list.
And the other thing we wanted you to know is that the next huddle will be December 14th. And if you want to mark these down on your calendar, January 4th and January 11th.
Yeah, we're gonna skip a few weeks. Well, we have a next Wednesday, December 7th, we're doing the Public Power Local Choice Energy Zoom. So so the next huddle is, and they're always Wednesdays, 6 to 7. So December 14th, and then we skip a couple weeks for the holidays. And then January 4th and January 11th. At that point, we'll sort of regroup and figure out how much more, I mean,
Whether we do
whether we're
another
gonna meet,
seminar.
right, whether we're gonna meet every week or every other week. I think, did we do every week last year?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, it's great. People always have a lot of information to share and questions as they start, diving into the
Once
session.
the session starts too, we start to invite people from who are sponsors for bills and stuff and who can answer questions and things.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Anything else? Anybody have any other comments or questions or thoughts about all this? We'll be updating you via the blog and the alert. I'm assuming everybody here either reads the blog or gets the alert. If you only read the blog, you really should subscribe to the alert, and that's on the right-hand side of the page. I think it says the home's webpage. Yes, I think it says get legislative alerts. You just click on there and you put in your name and email. And those will be roughly weekly for the time being, and then they're unfortunately almost daily as the session begins, or second week of the session as the bills start coming up for hearings. That's how you find out about which bills are coming up, when they're coming up, where you need to go, who you need to call, and then get your talking points so you can speak intelligently about the issues.
Okay.
So thank you so much
I
for
don't see
joining
any
us.
hands raised.
Oh, Cindy, go ahead, Cindy.
Yeah, just a quick, I don't remember getting alerts for a while, so I think I'll sign myself up again. But if I don't want to get double, so if you see that I'm still,
No, it automatically deletes the duplicates. So I'm not, you did, we actually sent one yesterday and today, and you haven't had them, didn't get them.
I don't think so.
I can look up
was-
your email and see if there's some issue with it. And I'll let you
I'll
know.
just
if I-
sign up. I'll
Okay,
sign up
yeah, go
again,
ahead and try that.
okay? Okay.
Yeah. Anything else?
All right, everybody.
Yeah.
Let's keep rested and get ready. It's
Yeah.
gonna be interesting.
Enjoy the holidays, but we'll see you again on the 14th and hope to see you next week for Public Power, Local
And
Choice
on the
Energy.
14th, we'll probably have some very clear
Powers of
direction
public.
on letters to the editor. We haven't seen, in the past, we haven't seen a lot of letters to the editor come about as a result of our trying to get that to happen. But that's a really important piece for controlling the community conversation. So in any case, stay tuned and stay healthy. And see
Yeah,
you
great
soon.
to see you all tonight.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.